All right, today we're diving into Palantir. You know, it's one of the most secretive and honestly most powerful companies out there. It's this wild mix of Silicon Valley tech bro ambition and, well, raw government power. So yeah, let's get into it.
And the big question here, the one we're going to try and unpack, is pretty wild. How on earth did a bunch of tech nerds, guys who are literally just building fraud detection tools for PayPal, an online payment company, how did they end up building the digital brain for the Pentagon, for spies, for soldiers, for police all over the world? It's a crazy story.
You know, at the very heart of this whole thing is maybe the most unlikely duo you could imagine. Seriously, it's the ultimate odd couple. So on one side, you've got Peter Thiel. He's this libertarian billionaire, co-founded PayPal, and famously thinks democracy and freedom just don't mix. And then on the other side, you've got Alex Karp. He's got a PhD in philosophy, a neo-Marxist background, and he actually calls himself a socialist. I mean, you can't make this up. These two guys, total opposites, came together to build a global surveillance empire. Okay, so to really get Palantir, we have to rewind the clock. Let's go back to the days right after 9/11. The whole world was gripped by fear and uncertainty, right? And in that atmosphere, the US government was desperate for a new kind of weapon. Not one made of steel, but one made of pure data. And the company's name, it's a huge clue. It's also kind of a warning. They called it Palantir. Yeah, like from the Lord of the Rings, those all-seeing crystal balls, the seeing stones. It's a perfect metaphor, right? Their goal is to see everything. But here's the kicker, the really ironic part. In Tolkien's story, those stones had a nasty habit of corrupting anyone who used them. Kind of makes you think. So back then, you had agencies like the CIA and the NSA just drowning in data. I mean, they had mountains of information, endless databases, tips from informants, signals intelligence, but it was all stuck in different places. It was siloed. They had all the puzzle pieces, all the dots, but they just couldn't see the big picture. They couldn't connect them. And this is where Peter Thiel has his big aha moment. He realized that the very same algorithms they built at PayPal, the ones designed to catch Russian mobsters committing credit card fraud, could be used for something else entirely. I mean, the logic was simple. If you can follow the money to catch a criminal, you can follow the money to catch a terrorist moving funds or weapons. But here's the thing. When they took this brilliant, world-changing idea to all the big venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, they got laughed out of the room. The VCs just didn't get it. The business model was weird, it relied on these super-secret government contracts, and honestly, it was just too scary. Nobody wanted to touch spy tech. So, after getting rejected by pretty much everyone in the private sector, Palantir found its savior. But it wasn't a typical investor. It was someone different. Someone who had a very personal stake in making this work. So who was it? In-Q-Tel. And if you've never heard of them, well, they're the CIA's very own venture capital firm. Yep, the CIA. And the agency didn't just write them a check. They gave Palantir something way more valuable than money. They gave them direct access to their own intelligence analysts. This meant Palantir could build the exact tool that actual spies needed from the ground up. Okay, so how does this thing actually work? Well, think of Palantir's main software called Gotham as like a universal translator for data. It's genius, really. It just sucks in information from all these different government databases that don't talk to each other, phone records from the NSA, flight manifests from the FAA, financial records from the Treasury, all of it. And then it merges everything into one giant interactive visual map. So all of a sudden, an analyst can literally see the lines connecting, say, a suspicious phone number in Pakistan to a bank transfer in Germany and a plane ticket to Miami. These are connections that were basically invisible before. And guess what? It worked. Big time. Palantir quickly made a name for itself, helping to uncover this huge Chinese cyber espionage ring called GhostNet. But then came the big one, the ultimate open secret in Washington. It's widely reported that Palantir software was the key tool used to finally connect the dots that led the US military to Osama bin Laden's compound in 2011. And the company's CEO, Alex Karp, he's never been one to mince words about what they do. He's been brutally honest about the reality of their work. This quote really just grounds everything. It's a stark reminder that they're not just playing with data on a screen. They're building tools that have very real life and death consequences.
But as you might expect, with this kind of incredible power came a whole lot of problems. A long, long line of controversies that started to reveal the much darker side of what this technology could do.
And the scandals started piling up fast. They really showed a pattern of super aggressive tactics,
and a real willingness to play in some ethically murky waters. And it all kicked off with a pretty shocking plot against one of the most famous whistleblowers on the planet.
So back in 2011, a bunch of emails get leaked, and they reveal this proposal, co-written by a Palantir engineer, mind you, to launch an all-out digital war against WikiLeaks and its supporters. We're talking about cyber attacks, blackmailing journalists, the works. Now, Palantir apologized and distanced themselves, but it was a really stunning glimpse into the kind of culture that was brewing in and around the company. Then there was the whole New Orleans experiment. For 6 years, Palantir was secretly testing predictive policing software in the city. So how did they pull that off without anyone knowing? Well, they gave it to the city for free. They called it a philanthropic gift, which let them sneak it in under the radar and completely avoid any public discussion. And what did it do? It created lists of people it thought were likely to be involved in future crimes. Pre-crime, basically.
And this next one, this really tells you everything you need to know about their whole philosophy. In 2017, remember when Google employees protested Project Maven? That was the AI program to help analyze military drone footage. Well, the backlash got so big that Google actually dropped the Pentagon contract. Palantir? They saw an opportunity. They swooped right in and snatched up that contract. No questions asked. No ethical hesitations.
So, after pretty much conquering the world of spies and soldiers, Palantir turned its attention to a whole new market, a really lucrative one, corporate America. And the sales pitch was incredibly simple. They just said, hey, you know that amazing data-fusing power we use to find terrorists? Well, it can also find inefficiencies in your supply chain, or, threats inside your own company.
And that's basically how they split their business in two. You have Gotham, which is still the big one for government, for intelligence, for defense, and then you have Foundry, which was built specifically to bring that same kind of power to the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies.
So what did corporations end up doing with this spy tech? Well, maybe the most infamous example is JP Morgan. They used Palantir to build a massive internal surveillance program targeting their own employees. We're talking tracking emails, GPS locations from their phones, browser histories, all to hunt for so-called insider threats. And this wasn't just some one-off thing. It became a major showcase for how Palantir's tools could be turned inward, basically turning the modern office into a surveillance zone.
Meanwhile, back on the government side of things, Palantir became the data engine behind ICE. Their system, called Falcon, was used to pull together all sorts of data to help agents track down and locate undocumented immigrants. This software was directly linked to workplace raids and deportations, and as you can imagine, it sparked huge public protests.
And through all this controversy, man, has it been profitable. In just 1 year, 2020, the year the company went public, CEO Alex Karp's compensation package was valued at over $1.1 billion. Let that sink in.
So, where does this all go from here? Well, today, Palantir isn't just about analyzing what's already happened. They are actively shaping the future of war. Right now, the company's software is deeply involved in the war in Ukraine. It's reportedly taken the kill chain, that's the time it takes from identifying a target to actually firing on it, and shrunk it from hours down to just minutes. And what's next for them? Military AI. They're literally building something that's been described as a ChatGPT for war commanders. And that really leaves us with the central question, doesn't it? It's a huge dilemma for our time. On one hand, Palantir says they're providing an absolutely necessary tool, a technological edge that democracies need to protect themselves. But on the other hand, critics see something way more dangerous. They see a permanent, unaccountable marriage between Silicon Valley's power to process data and the government's power to use force. So what did they build? A shield to protect democracy? Or the very infrastructure of a surveillance state that could make democracy impossible? The answer, I guess, really depends on who gets to watch the watchers.